and welcome back. For 2024, I decided I wanted to try bullet journaling again. If you're here for my usual art content, you're a friend or a co-worker of mine, then you might wonder what that is. It's a type of journaling where you take an empty journal, usually one with a dotted grid, and try to turn it into an organization and productivity tool for yourself. Most people include a calendar, to-do lists or tasks, and they also try to improve themselves by tracking certain habits or working on things that they want to improve. This journal can also include several lists that are not connected to the calendar, such as reading or watching lists. And people often include a bit of mindfulness, writing about their moods or reflecting on their month or their year. It's basically a calendar that you draw yourself with extra things added. In terms of how much this costs, it can range from 5 to 10 euros for a basic journal and then just any pen. But some journals can also cost around 30 euros, and you might suddenly find yourself becoming a hoarder for markers, inks, and various stationery supplies. It's entirely up to you how simple or complicated your bullet journal becomes, but the examples that you see online tend to be very complex pages that people have put a lot of work and effort into. And the pages that I will show you in this video certainly fall under the latter category as well. But I don't think that I'll be keeping this up for the rest of the year. To make this a bit more tangible, I'm going to show you my old bullet journal. I started this in 2021. I had a bunch of things that I wanted to work on, new habits that I wanted to build. But in the end, such a bullet journal is most efficient when you spend a little bit of time every day to check your task or keep track of your habits. And I could not build this habit. I started my bullet journal in late January and I lasted until June before things fizzled out. At the same time, there were times when I really enjoyed this, particularly designing the pages of the calendar. You can see here how I tried out different things, vertical designs, horizontal designs, using a bit of watercolor and trying a bit of hand lettering. I also really liked the format of this journal and I ended up using it for other things later on. At the same time, watercolors were a hit and miss if you would damage the page or not, so I was extremely cautious about using it. Instead, I used some acrylics from my paint by numbers sets, but they ended up being sticky, so the pages stuck together. I never really considered combining illustration or watercolor paintings with bullet journaling. I've been wanting to give bullet journaling another attempt since then, and last year in November I saw this course on Domestika called Illustrated Bullet Journaling Planning, where the teacher ends up using watercolors in her bullet journal, and that was the push that I needed. So I bought all of the supplies in November, including a bullet journal by the same brand that she uses, which is sadly twice as expensive as my previous one. Pages are a really nice warm white, and the pages are coated in a way that you can use watercolors more easily without it bleeding through the pages. I ended up finishing the setup of the journal, including the yearly overview and all of the pages for January back in December. This is a bit of a relief because it means I'm less rushed, and this will help me get through times where I don't feel the energy to work on my bullet journal. At the same time, the experience from my previous journaling attempt helped me decide which pages I wanted to set up again. I bought some stickers in Japan and a couple of pens that I ended up using here. The most useful page in my previous journal was the gifts page, where I kept track of ideas for gifts for my family members, and I referred to it again whenever a birthday or Christmas came around. So here is what my January looks like. You can see how crumbled the left side of the spread is, And that is because I'm having less success using watercolors in this journal than our tutor. The watercolor dries very uneven and the pages warp a lot. I had problems working on the left side of the page for one of the more complicated illustrations that I'm going to show you in a moment, because the page was resting on all of these warped pages. At the same time, I'm super pleased with how my January pages turned out so far, and I hope this will help me spend more time in my bullet journal and turn this into a regular habit. I also made a list of ideas for page designs in my old bullet journal, and at the top of the list were characters, themes, or items from Final Fantasy VIII. If you don't know this game, I recommend that you watch the opening trailer, because this will show you all of the characters and the scenes that I illustrated here. I've always been inspired by games or movies, and during my teenage years that was in particular Star Wars and this game. So this here is the pendant that our main male character is wearing on a chain around his neck. And I love how this page turned out, except I painted to the very edge of the pages and I ended up getting red paint on all of the pages next to it. This is why for the next designs I decided I would leave a bit of space between the edge of the pages and my illustrations. Here is the revolver gun blade, the weapon of the male main character. You can upgrade his weapon and then it will look different, but this is the version that is used in all of the cutscenes. You can also see that there's a small version of his pendant hanging from the hilt of the gunblade. And here are the next 3 pages, which are already set up, which will finish the theme of Final Fantasy for January. The last one here is the logo of the game. This one here is the sorceress Idea. This is directly based on her concept art. And here we have a reunion between our 2 main characters. But I intentionally changed the way that Rinoa's face is tilted because I felt it was too awkward to draw it exactly like the reference image. I decided to use water-soluble pencils by Faber-Castell for this one. I thought it might give me greater control because in the end their faces are fairly small and I was nervous about painting at such a small scale. I do regret drawing them so close to the middle of the journal because the pages are bent from just the spine of the journal, and that made it hard to paint in this area. I also underestimated how much these pencils would fade once they had dried, so I needed to apply a lot of layers, and it's still nowhere near as bright as the reference image. I'm not 100% satisfied with how it turned out, but at the same time, this is not a watercolor journal or watercolor paper, and at some point I felt it would be safer to stop before I risked any damage to the paper. In the end, the characters are recognizable enough, but somehow I forgot about Squall's scar until several days later, and I just added it yesterday. For Idea's portrait, I worked with some waterproof fine liners to draw all of the lines that were black in the concept art, but it was a huge problem that the page was resting on all of the warped pages because every time I pressed down with the marker, the paper would move. That's why you can see my finger here in the middle of her face, just trying to hold the paper down. I think if I want to paint such a detailed piece again in the future in this journal, I think I will need to work on the right side instead, where the paper is not warped yet. It came out looking really good, it was just a bit nerve-wracking. I wanted this spread to mainly be purple, so I used the same granulating black paint to illustrate the days of the week. And then I used a purple pen to put in the numbers of the days. I'm extremely happy with the entire spread. The last one was a bit trickier because I didn't have a clear plan for how the calendar part should look. I didn't want it to have very strong lines, but in the end that's what I ended up with. You can see me try out a bunch of stuff here, starting with hand-drawn pluses, but I didn't like the way it looked and ended up outlining a bit more later on. I'm also not sure if I like how much red there is. Perhaps I should have gone with black days of the week instead of red ones, same as the previous page, but sometimes I look at this and also like how colorful it is. I was very nervous about drawing the logo because it has a lot of white sections, so you need to draw around them, which is a technique called negative painting, and I'm really bad at it. I also wasn't sure if I would be able to get a smooth application of paint with watercolors on this paper after my previous attempts in this journal, so I used these Karin brush markers. These are water-based markers, so they don't blend as well as alcohol-based ones. And they also bled through the paper of my previous journal, so I was a bit nervous about blending these colors on the paper, but it came out super well. and did not warp the paper at all. They were juicy, and look at how bright the colors are. I used some fine liners for the finer details, and I did use a white gel pen at the end to add some of the details. And now I'm super happy with the result. I'm not sure how well applying several layers of these brush markers would go, but at least this illustration did not bleed through the paper, so now I'm considering what else I can illustrate with these brush markers in a similar style without layering them for shadows. So here are all of our finished pages. I would love to hear which one is your favorite. I'm definitely looking forward to next month when I can use all of these pages. But I will probably go with something simpler for March. Have you tried bullet journaling before, and how did it go? Thanks for watching, and see you again soon.